Hi, I'm That E-Guy, and welcome to another GameHEART review. Everspace is a roguelite space exploration and combat game. You play as a clone of a man named Adam, and you're heading towards coordinates in the demilitarized zone, although you don't know why, and don't remember anything about your past life.
Who would have thought that outlaws make such good informers? But they were right. You're still alive.
I'm not sure we've been introduced.
The majority of your time in Everspace will be spent flying your ship in distinct combat areas of the DMZ. These areas are large enough that they will take a few minutes to explore, which also allows for flight around them without immediately aggroing every enemy ship in the vicinity. As you would expect, in space you can fly in every direction, and can roll freely. This means that there's no up or down, so it's very easy to lose your sense of direction. Thankfully, the in-game HUD marks points of interest on your screen, and they can be used to orient yourself with your surroundings. Due to the lack of gravity, you are able to fly in one direction and face another, which gives a good feeling of freedom in combat and exploration, but it does take some getting used to if you're more familiar with the traditional aeroplane combat. It feels as though there is less importance on outmaneuvering your opponents, as they can simply spin their ship to shoot at you even if you flank them. With this in mind, after a few hours of play, you'll learn the intricacies of space combat, and there is joy to be had in effectively dispatching your foes with clever use of equipment and asteroid cover, in addition to swerving to avoid fire. In most encounters, you'll be outnumbered, and in the later levels, the foes hit very hard, so getting through these encounters in one piece is extremely rewarding. At times, the opposition's forces might be too powerful to engage head-on, but thankfully there are creative solutions available that the player can leverage too. In Everspace, there are two main hostile forces, the Okar, a lizard-like species, and outlaws. In addition to this, there is also the G&B Mining Company, who are neutral, but will retaliate against anyone that attacks them. As such, these factions can be lured to each other so that you only need to pick off the scraps. Adding depth to the combat, ships in Everspace can have shields in addition to hull hit points, and certain weapons do more damage to one or the other, so swapping weapons mid-combat may be required if you have more than one available. Otherwise, you'll need to make use of the secondary weapons to deal damage that you might struggle to wear down. However, secondary weapons like missiles have limited ammo, so you'll need to balance that carefully. You may also discard a weapon to equip a different one that does reasonable damage to both types of health. Ships can be flown in first or third person view, with the first person view having in-cockpit or bumper camera options. I found that third person provided the most situational awareness in both combat and exploration, and as such I stuck with that for the majority of my playtime, despite normally loving in-cockpit views for these types of games. Exploration in Everspace is necessary in order to gain materials, find fuel, weapons and other equipment, and earn credits. Fuel is expended when you jump from area to area, and as such you will need to ensure that you are topping up between each jump, or you'll be at risk of ending your run prematurely. The other materials that you find along the way can be traded or sold, and can also be used to upgrade or craft new equipment, which gives a lot of purpose to the quiet moments between each encounter. As with other roguelikes, no two runs will be the same. In this case, each area is randomly generated, and there is a good amount of visual differences between the areas. But not only that, specific biomes will have an abundance of different resources, and at times, certain regions will even have environmental hazards such as black holes, solar storms, or electromagnetic interference, which each have their own challenges and advantages, and really mix up how you need to play. I found that the average successful run in Everspace takes longer than a regular roguelike playthrough, somewhere between 2 to 3 hours. But thankfully you are able to quit at the start of each area, which will save the game, allowing you to pick up where you left off without losing any progress. As each area only takes around 5 to 10 minutes to complete, it allows for short play sessions, which is a nice feature to have. When you do eventually end the run, whether you win or lose, you will be able to spend credits on passive bonuses to make your next run slightly easier. Some of these bonuses will upgrade your ship, and other upgrades will apply to all ships. This upgrade tree has a lot of upgrades and will likely take more than 20 hours of play to unlock everything. You are then able to jump straight into your next attempt by choosing a ship and loadout and difficulty. In the base version of the game, there are only 3 ships to choose from: a medium all-rounder, which has a decent shield and reasonably powerful weapons, a heavy fighter with strong weapons and a huge hull health pool with no shield, and finally a lightweight scout ship which has a small shield and a small amount of hull HP and only 1 main weapon slot. On the upside, it does have high max speed and good maneuverability. I did find all ships to be viable options, however, as ships can also take component damage when the shield is down, I found it harder to maintain the ships with smaller or non-existent shields and used the default ship the most. I was playing with the Encounters DLC that adds an extra ship which is also a medium class. In addition to this extra ship, the DLC also introduces a few extra weapons and gadgets. Most significantly, the DLC adds a bunch of NPCs with their own storylines. They appear on the map screen so that you know where to find them, which gives short-term goals whilst traversing the DMZ, and made choices between the routes feel more meaningful. When finally completing a run, Everspace's story doesn't end, as there is something else that you need to do before concluding Adam's story. As such, there really is a lot of content to play through, and if you manage to get through all of this, or are a seasoned space pilot looking for a real challenge, Everspace also has a hardcore mode. Hardcore mode has no roguelite elements at all. All equipment is unlocked from the get-go, so players can find or build weapons, as all the blueprints are available too. Ships start without upgrades, but upgrades can be purchased after completing a sector. Hardcore mode difficulty is also set to hard, and when starting each sector, the player has a choice between 2 handicaps that will stick with them for the duration of the entire sector. All of these changes result in a real brutal challenge that will take time to conquer. I personally couldn't get further than 2 or 3 sectors in before getting blown to pieces. If you can't tell from watching the video alone, Everspace is a particularly beautiful game. Flying around in space amongst all the debris with those beautiful backdrops is an absolute delight. Visually, there are 3 or 4 main biomes for asteroids, and these are at times used in combination with space debris thrown in to make truly varied environments. This allows Everspace to provide a large amount of visually different levels to fly through, and these are complemented by vibrant and detailed backgrounds including the nearby planets and distant galaxies. In summary, Everspace's combat is fast and tactical, and the exploration is a joy. Thanks to a lengthy story, if you don't mind the roguelite formula of die and retry, there is also a hefty amount of replayability in store. Everspace is hard, but difficulty select is available to accommodate for skill level, and I found that the game doesn't punish small mistakes too harshly. As such, if you're looking for some solid space combat, Everspace won't disappoint. I hope you enjoyed this review. Please like or share the video if you feel so inclined, or leave a comment and I'll get back to you.